There we go. All right, I'd like to go ahead and welcome everyone to tonight's workshop. We have people, lots of District 12 people, but we also have some District 9 and District 14 members. Thanks for joining us. Trece Eden is our District 12 parliamentarian and BRR person, and she is in charge of tonight's workshop, which is making your meetings count. So I'm just going to turn it right over to Trece to do her thing. And Trece, is it okay if people ask you questions along the way if anything comes up?
Yeah, if you don't mind helping me like wave at me or something because my screen will be like full of my PowerPoint and I might not be able to see anybody. So I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen. I'm going to get my PowerPoint up here. So give me just a quick little second and hopefully this will work.
Yep,
So do you see
it's
my
there.
PowerPoint, everybody?
Perfect.
Woohoo! That's
Yep.
the thing about this that makes me the most nervous is the technology pieces. I've done this stuff for like 30 years and it's the tech that always messes me up. So thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to share with you today. As Debbie said, I'm Trece. I am your District 12 BRR Chair and Parliamentarian. And thank you for taking the time to join me tonight. I know everyone has a lot on their plates, and I do appreciate the opportunity to share with everyone with some stuff that I hope will be helpful information, some strategies that will you can use right away to help you make the most of your meetings. And ultimately, it's about making our clubs better able to serve our communities. So just a little bit about me and why maybe you might want to listen to a thing or two I say. I happen to be background wise, I'm a nurse like Debbie. I come from a nursing background, a career of about 30 years, and I'm semi-retired right now, do consulting work mainly right now. But my nursing bedside career was mainly in critical care, and then I crossed over to the dark side and went into management and spent the second half of my career as a nurse leader managing a cardiology unit. Then I went into nursing at the director level in acute care, and then was a chief nursing officer for the last 7 years of my critical care career. And in that time, I did lots of different stuff. And my last big project was opening the Radiation Oncology Center in Astoria, Oregon. If you ever drive by Astoria, Oregon, and that center, that was my little feather in my cap before I left that career. So that's a little bit of my background. Um, and so moving right along, when I was given this topic to talk about, I really struggled with how best to focus on sharing some key strategies with you all tonight, knowing that there's a lot of information I could talk about, but I wanted to focus on what I could talk about within the constructs of the time frame we have allotted. So I'll do my very best. And as I go through the presentation, ask questions. I'm going to rely on Debbie to kind of help me navigate through in case I can't see you. And I will do my best to address those questions with you. But I do want to focus on what I like to call the 5 Ps of meaningful meetings, which are aligned with our Altrusa mission, really. I want to give you some knowledge base on the use of some customizable tools that'll enable you to successfully prepare yourself to lead any type of a team meeting, the ability to utilize project management tools that will enable you to measure and follow up towards successful project completion, and also some time at the end to learn from each other. So those 5 Ps of a meaningful meeting: purpose, people, prepare, produce, and pursue. So I don't know about you guys, but have you ever been in a meeting like this? I have probably far too many that I would like to maybe forget about. And I've actually been the person in the meeting that has sat there and raised my hand and went, what am I doing here? And why am I sitting here? And can someone tell me what this is all about? Because I'm really not even sure why I'm here. I'm one of those people that I'm not too shy to actually say that in a meeting. I'm sure that nobody here wants to be in a meeting where that is said. And so that's my hope today as well, is that that does not ever happen to you. So it's really important right off the bat to have clarity around why you're having a meeting in the first place. So I would say that when you approach someone about becoming an Altrusa, and you do not start off by saying, hey, do you want to go to a bunch of meetings? I would venture to say, though, that by the end of your conversation, you probably are inviting somebody to a meeting. So why is it that we do have meetings in Altrusa? Meetings are really about improving communication. And while there are many ways by which communication can be accomplished, structured meetings improve communication in many ways. Other methods, such as phone calls and emails, are useful, but they do have their limits. In meetings, information can be shared amongst a group of people with shared interests and invested in common goals, such as us as Altrusans. Obviously, we are very fortunate that we have common goals in our clubs. So coming together and focusing on common goals is also a great opportunity to build relationships. This develops bonds. It helps people feel more comfortable and confident as part of a group. And during meetings, updates can be provided regarding important topics such as finances, project status, and committee reports. During updates, questions and answers can be conducted, and often this process can generate further input and answers, further discussion, which generates even more input and ideas. Whether through reports or even a more formal brainstorming session or informal open sessions, meetings are a great opportunity to gather input and generate ideas. These may lead to new projects or the sunsetting of old projects. I know I've seen that happen in our club, and I'm sure you all have seen that happen in your clubs as well. And maybe even new fundraising ideas, maybe some new ways to streamline a process or gain support, attract new members. Input and ideas often lead to solving problems. People who gather together from different perspectives and background all bring their insight, which leads to better solutions. When problems arise, this leads to better decisions. And depending upon the decision, meetings and maybe even a quorum is needed to make a decision. And sometimes, as in the case with nonprofits such as Altrusa, it's the law. In order to retain our nonprofit status, we must conduct regular meetings, such as our board meetings and committee meetings, and meet in certain standards and certain timeframes. Certain states and certain, countries even have different laws which regulate how many meetings and what types of meetings you need to have. And most importantly, we meet to achieve our mission and our goals and to make plans so that we can identify those community needs so that we can meet our mission and our goals. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So when we have a purpose, then we need to sort of start talking about what types of meetings we have. So we are fortunate within Altrusa that we already have types of meetings constructed for us within our Altrusa bylaws. These are the types of meetings required to conduct business at the club, most of which are also required to maintain our nonprofit status. So these are the more formal meetings like our board, our business, our foundation, committees. And these are structured. Those are the meetings in which we are more likely to give reports, input is given and provided, and decisions are made. But there's also opportunities for more informal meetings. An example of that might be a team huddle. This is something that can be called in advance or maybe even what sometimes I like to call the meeting after the meeting. So a quick huddle could be called to decide if another quick meeting needs to be called, if there's a time frame within a decision that needs to happen. You can have a very focused meeting if a particular project needs to have a team put together to work on it. It can be defined by a time frame with a task force, very focused on this one particular project. You can call a focused type of a meeting to do fact finding or research. Other types of meeting might involve one-to-one meetings that you might have just between two people, say a boss and a subordinate or two team members. You can have a particular meeting just for team building. A lot of our clubs meet just for social time. Maybe that's, you don't even think of it as a meeting, but even social time, oftentimes a little bit of business can be done, not formal certainly, but a lot of conversation around what's going on at the clubs can even happen during structured social time. A lot of our clubs have program meetings. You can have meetings for strategic planning. So again, there's lots of different types of meetings. These are just a few that you might consider as you're talking about what type of meeting that you're going to want to have for whatever it is that your purpose ends up being. And then, of course, there's people. And at the bottom line of everything, it's all about people. So this topic alone could be the subject of an entire day's seminar, an entire weekend seminar. So again, since our time is short, I want us to focus on just a few of the standard roles. We're familiar with a lot of those roles because they are part of our regular meeting structure already. So I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but I do want to touch a bit on some common roles with you all and provide some strategies on how best to manage a little bit of group dynamic so that that can help you along the way as you're starting with your own meeting processes or perhaps thinking about some of the dynamics you're managing already in your meetings. So when we think about roles, some in this list might be familiar to you, some maybe not. And of course, this list is not all inclusive. I'm sure there's some that you're thinking of that aren't on this list, but these are some of the more common ones that we tend to encounter when we're talking about group dynamics. And these are formal and informal. And whether or not you or someone else thinks they have a role in a meeting, we all have roles in a meeting and we all play a part or multiple parts as members of a team. And as I go through some of these, you might sort of have faces pop up in your head of people you're thinking of on your own teams and in your own meetings. But the key strategy I want you to think about and be aware of here of these roles and just kind of be aware of the roles and know when to change roles. And what I like to think about is, changing roles or kind of how you change your hat. And that'll make more sense to you as I go along here, but change your hat when your group dynamics start to change so that you can adjust along the way. That's sort of a key little trick that you can learn when you're dealing with group dynamics. So a leader can be either formal or informal. And when I say formal, I sort of mean like you have a formal role as a chair or as president or whatever that official title that you carry might look like. But there are also informal roles. I can be in a meeting and I might not have any role at all, but just because I happen to speak a lot or I carry a certain demeanor, I can be seen as an unofficial leader because people tend to look at me and tend to gravitate toward me for whatever reason in a particular meeting. And I can use that, if you will, for good or not good, depending upon my motivation as a member of that group. So key points here are, especially if you are a formal leader, know your responsibilities. I believe one of the most important factors, yet often missed, is being prepared, which I will really talk about a lot later. When leading a meeting, it's important that you pay attention and that you look and listen a lot more than you speak. When leading a meeting, observe, like I said, and you want to keep the meeting action oriented and moving forward toward decision making. And then another role that's more formal, tends to have a title, is your secretary. This is also can be your note taker, maybe your timekeeper. This is your person, your archiver, your person that is keeping track of the progress of your meeting, and the person who tends to sort of kind of nudge you and help kind of keep you on task. Doesn't necessarily, again, have to be the person formally sitting to your left or your right. It can be someone within the group that raises their hand and makes a point of order as well to help whomever is leading the group stay on task. And then speaking of point of order, your parliamentarian. And if you don't have one, I highly encourage you to have one, or at least be following parliamentary procedure as best you can within your meetings. This is also, your gatekeeper, your standard setter. This helps smooth communication by setting up procedures and ensuring equal participation. Expresses or calls for discussion of standards for evaluating the quality of the team process. Okay. Then some more informal roles. Definitely you have people who are your encouragers, rewards others through verbal and also those nonverbal cues of agreement, warmth, praise, smiles. They nod their head. They keep others engaged and involved in the group and in the meeting. You have your harmonizers. They kind of mediate conflicts among your team members. Your compromisers shifts his or her own position on an issue in order to reduce conflict. The commentator points out the positive and negative aspects of the team's dynamics, calls for change if needed. The follower kind of accepts the ideas offered by others and serves as an audience for the team. You have the devil's advocate, sort of opposes everything. Maybe not. Really, the devil's advocate in reality and by definition is sort of the person that opposes the popular opinion of the group, challenging the prevailing assumptions or ideas in a constructive manner, not necessarily destructive manner, should be in a constructive manner. And this is actually a very important role in that it fosters critical analysis. It enables the exploration of diverse perspectives and enhances decision making. And then you have the silent minority. I'm sure you guys know those folks in your group, kind of the people that sit in the back that are more quiet. Often these are the folks with the best ideas, so please don't forget about them. So if you're lucky, you have a mix of these communication styles and personalities and a good balance, but that's usually not the case, right? So in looking at these roles and personality styles within this group dynamic, there's obviously going to be the opportunity for conflict, right? And your meeting can go off the rails, and I'm sure you've all experienced that happening a time or two. So to get back on track, you can put on a new hat. So if, for example, if everyone is following, you're all going down a particular path and no one is really questioning the path that you're going down, you can put on a different hat and you can play the devil's advocate and say, hey, wait a minute. What about this or that? Have we considered this or that? I don't think this is a good idea. Go ahead and try it. If everyone is talking at once, you can put on a different hat and be the commentator. Say, hey, point of order. We have a lot of negative commentary going on here. Let's get back to what the topic is here and let's talk one person at a time. Again, that's a parliamentarian rule right there. Everybody's supposed to talk one person at a time. And that also is part of that team dynamic process. And hopefully you guys have ground rules, which I'm going to get to in a second as well. But that is sort of how you can use roles and change your hats to help navigate through some of those team dynamics. Does that kind of make some sense to everybody? I hope.
Great job, Trece, and really good points.
Okay, hope you're not stunned to silence, and I will move on.
I have everyone muted for the time being, so they
Okay.
need to unmute if they want to talk.
Okay. All right, I will move on. And again, if you have questions, you can also write them down. I'm trying to time myself so we have some time at the end to just have some good dialogue and discussion. So moving on to the next P, as I said, I mentioned ground rules a bit. So the third part is preparation. This is a section that I really want to dive into tonight because I think if we all spent more dedicated time up front with this step, it will save us a lot of time, headaches, heartache in the long run. So I'm going to share with you some important tools that if you're not already using and doing, I strongly recommend that you should be. So the first thing I want to talk about is setting expectations. This is typically, if you're familiar at all with team dynamics, there's some stages of team formation. And the first thing that when a team gets together, they sort of start this storming phase. During kind of the storming phase, a good thing to do is setting ground rules. So with ground rules, a lot of the teams that you guys might end up leading or becoming a part of have already been in existence for a while. Members come and members go, and some members stay, but they're changing a little bit. So whether they're changing a little bit, or maybe it's even a brand new team, you might want to, if you don't have ground rules already, get some started. If you already have them, bring them up, have a brief conversation about them, dust them off. Do they still resonate with the group? Are they okie dokie? Does everybody still agree to them? Do we need to tweak them a little bit? Do they need to be thrown out and refreshed and start over? Or if you don't have them, then let's agree to them. And a good way to do this is just to get a whiteboard or a big piece of paper and just brainstorm. What are some what are 5 top things we're going to agree to? And typically it's pretty easy. We're going to agree to show up on time. We're going to agree to be respectful. How does that look? Maybe we only talk one person at a time. We don't yell at each other. I mean, however that is going to look for you guys, y'all agree to what that is. And the reason that is so important is because then when somebody breaks that rule, you're not, pointing them out and saying, hey, you did something bad. You can say, I feel, because then it's about you, right? I feel like maybe our rules aren't being followed right now. Can we take a step back and pause, take a breath, and let's follow our rules right now. That way it's not about that person, it's about our ground rules. Okay.
Trece, with that kind of a thing, if you bring that up during a meeting, if you're a club president and something's going out of control or whatever, if you said that kind of a statement, do you also say, refer to the ground rules like we all agreed upon at the start of the year or something or other like that to reference back to that?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Some people keep their ground rules, or they might call them something else. I mean, we in my club, we have housekeeping. We call it housekeeping. And our housekeeping, and I'll show it to you guys a little bit later, but it's on our agendas. We send it out with our agendas every month. And so we can say, hey, remember housekeeping, guys. And it's just, okay, that's housekeeping. But it's a way to keep it from not being personal so that people don't feel personally attacked. You're not attacking the person, you're not attacking anything really, but you're not attacking the person. You're bringing up a process. And so that is one way to, like I said, keep that meeting flowing and to make sure people are shown respect, because it is about respect. You're showing respect for your speaker, you're showing respect for the other club members, and for everybody involved in making the meeting happen and to making it work well. Another thing you might want to set expectations about, and something that my club has done and which we've tweaked along the way and continue to sort of nurse along, is setting expectations around committee reports. They can really run long if you're not careful and can take up your entire meeting. So we have set up the expectation that committee reports are in writing and they're part of our newsletter. That's where all the details are, so that when the committee chair comes forward to speak at a meeting, they have 5 minutes and it must be action oriented and decision making, whatever it is they're talking about. So if they want details about something, it's going to be the newsletter. The expectation is set that committee members read the newsletter. Then if there's a decision to be made, like, okay, we need to decide if we're going to participate in this particular event. This is what the event is. I laid out the details of the event in the newsletter. Does anybody have any questions about that? Should we participate, yes or no? Then that can be the decision that needs to be made in the meeting. That has really helped to move our meetings along to be timely, action and focused and decision making focused. And again, I'm going to make a plug for parliamentary procedure. It does help, guys. And if you need any help with that, getting that going, let me know. I'd be happy to help you. It can be a lifesaver. And then I stress leading by example as well. If you are a member of the team, you, again, like I said, you can put that hat on. You can assume a role anytime. If you're thinking things are getting off track, if you're not keeping up to the agenda, if the meeting is running super long, I've actually done this. Raise your hand, speak up. Point of order. Our meeting is 20 minutes over. What's going on here? I need to leave. We've got things to do. When are we wrapping up? It is perfectly okay to do that. And then as a leader of the meeting, it is my responsibility to do my best to stay on task. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to cut people off, but I also need to be cognizant of everybody else in the room that has time commitments that I, as a leader, have made a promise to. And if you're leading appropriately, others will follow you, right? So leading by example is important. I'm going to touch a bit on calendars. For me, calendars are a lifesaver, and it might just be because I'm kind of a nerd, but oh well, you get a nerd because that's what I am. So for me, and for a lot of people like me, nerds like me, taking some time to get organized prior to the start of your assignment, whether it's a committee or a project leader for a few months or club president for a biennium, you will save headaches and help make the most of your meetings if you set yourself up for success ahead of time. Keeping track of your specific goals and your deadlines for multiple items throughout the weeks and months can be really challenging. So I suggest starting off your service time by recording everything you know that needs to be done and the date it needs to happen or is due on a calendar. So I like to use Google Calendar for this task because it allows me not only to set up when everything is due, but I can also put reminders for me and all of the task details so that I can keep all of that on my fingertips. Of course, paper calendars and planners work just as well, whatever you are comfortable with. It's also good to keep reminders on there for who you have assigned to be responsible for those tasks that you've delegated. Club committee chairs and board members, you should be keeping those calendars each year so that you can share it with your replacements as part of your handoff process. We've been very lucky. I felt very lucky that I had a good president, and at district level as well. I got a few calendars handed down to me that helped me set up what I needed to do on multiple levels with my duties to try to keep everything straight. It hasn't been perfect for me, but to try to keep all my deadlines straight so that I didn't miss anything. And one thing I do also, for example, I put things on my agendas in advance. So I have an agenda template already saved for every month of my presidency. And I already have on there what needs to happen when for different things. So for example, in March, when we have to have elections, I already have on my March 2025 business meeting elections so that I don't forget that we have to do our elections in March. So that, again, just helps me not miss anything. And hopefully you guys would find that helpful for you as well.
Please, can I jump in for a minute?
Yeah.
I do the same thing in terms of agendas way in advance because, again, when you're trying to come up with preparing for a meeting a couple months away, you may forget things. One of the other things I like to do is at the end of one meeting, if it's a monthly meeting, as soon as that meeting is over, if there's things we talked about that I know need to be added on to the next month's meeting, I go into that pre-made agenda and add them on the month ahead while it's still fresh right then, because sometimes a month later you're like, oh yeah, I forgot we talked about that and we were going to follow up at this coming meeting. And the other thing that I love about you saying sharing your schedules or calendars with others is that it's really respectful of other people we're working with to give them dates so that they can have it on their calendar, or to give them information in advance, because there's really nothing worse than being asked, a day before a deadline, oh, can you make sure you whatever by tomorrow, which is, it's happened to me plenty of times and I know happens to everyone, but then you're in a crunch and it puts extra pressure on people when they didn't know about it further in advance. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And you'll hear me say often action oriented, whenever there is a something, an assignment, anything like that at a meeting, whether at a business meeting or a board meeting, I'm always noting it as well as who is responsible. Um, because I had that come and kick me in the tush recently because I did not do that. I wrote who was responsible, and then I did not follow up with that person. And I had it on my agenda, but I neglected to follow up with that person ahead of time. And then when I was working on my agenda, I went, oh, I forgot to follow up with that person to make sure they had completed their assignment. And they had it because they needed help, but didn't come to me for help ahead of time. So we missed this deadline, and now I'm scrambling. So again, I should have made myself a reminder in my calendar to follow up with her to make sure she was going to be able to make her deadline. So again, it's just those little reminders and little ticklers, because our brains can only hold so much information. Well, I don't know about you, but I mean, I need all the help I can get. So if there's tech that can help me, I'm gonna use it. So thanks for that, Debbie. And speaking of agendas, that was right into my next topic. I have been to these meetings where I'm in a meeting, like I said, and I'm not sure why I'm there. So agenda planning is another thing that I happen to devote a lot of time to. And I, again, was very fortunate. My presidential predecessors set me up for success with some good templates that fortunately I've only had to tweak a little bit. But some of the things I have done and I would recommend as well is asking for agenda items in advance. So why I do that is that it gives the opportunity to resolve and prepare prior to a meeting. Now, I also set that up as an expectation when I came on board as president. I've only had people ask me, send me items a few times. And most of the time, I've actually been able to resolve those things without putting them even on the agenda. So again, that has saved some time. And when I have put them on the agenda, it has led to some really well thought out conversation, because our board was prepared for the conversation that was coming forward. So having that opportunity for those agenda items in advance is extremely helpful, and sending the agenda out in advance. If you don't do this already, please do. We send our agendas out via email. I hope you guys are doing that. We think it's just respectful that members know what's coming and that they have the opportunity to prepare. We send it out about 2 days in advance. We try 3, but most of the time I make it in 2. And then essential documents. So our club uses Google Docs, which is the next item down, but we send documents in links ahead of time. These help the members, again, can read our financials. They read our committee meeting minutes, committee reports, all of that information prior to our meetings. They can print them out in advance, or they can pull them up on Google Docs on their laptops in meetings if they would like to do so, and just have all that information. They can write notes and have their questions ready to go at meetings, so that our meetings can run really efficiently. Time. So one of the things that I did was I added a column for time on the agenda. We start at noon, we end at 1, and then I added time in for pretty much each agenda item. Again, that helps me in particular, but also all the members have an idea of how long everybody should have to complete their particular agenda item. Another thing that we have on our agendas is what we call looking ahead. This is something that was there prior to my starting as president, and I really like it because It's a snapshot of the next month or two that's coming up of all of our calendar of events and volunteer opportunities. We're probably like a lot of you guys, our club is very busy. We have a lot of stuff that even pops up last minute. So we add those in and make sure everybody is aware of those opportunities. And as I said, our ground rules, our housekeeping, we keep those as well. So here's an example of our business meeting agenda. It's small, but I'll blow that up a little bit for you. You can see here a little bit of our ground rules, how we would like people to have our Zoom etiquette, reviewing and sending any revisions to our business meeting minutes so we can get those approved quickly. Our links so that you can review budgets and minutes, and then our time. This is our little look ahead so that you can see what's coming up and some volunteer opportunities. Our meeting link if you're going to Zoom in. Then here again, some housekeeping, how we're going to ask you to send in your agenda items, our links, get your newsletter items in, and then here's where you go to sign up for all your volunteer opportunities. This is on all of our agendas. Another item.
Does any
Oh,
other
sorry.
club, I'm interrupting, sorry. Does
No,
any
go
other
right ahead.
club put their kind of housekeeping, or ground rules onto an agenda? I think that's really interesting. Just wondering if any other clubs have done that before. See, mostly shaking heads. Okay, thanks for that idea, Trece. That's a great one to share with everyone.
Then another item that I wanted to touch base with you all on is delegating. This is something that I think some of us really struggle with. At times, I know I'm guilty of not being very good at this. And I know this is one thing that has in the past sort of prevented people from stepping forward into a leadership role, whether at the committee or board level or district level, is there's that fear of, gosh, I'm going to have to do so much. And I think that fear comes from the fact that we are all not that great at delegating. And when you have some of the skills that I just discussed before, delegating becomes easier. As a leader, our job is actually to delegate. And if you're doing a good job as a leader, you should be delegating to those people that have the skill set to help you along the way. Your committee chairs and your team leaders are the ones that should be out there leading your teams, and your club members are out there to help you get this work done. It's not all up to you to be on the ground doing all the work. Your club is there for you to help you and to support you and to be there for you. You have got to delegate or you're going to burn yourself out. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants a leader to burn out. So please, please, please delegate. Then the next P is to produce. And, we've talked a lot about everything else but what happens in the meeting, right? That's because 90% of a successful meeting happens before you ever even set foot in the meeting. So now you're in the meeting, right? Everybody's looking at you, or you're sitting in the meeting wondering, how can I help this meeting go well? Well, let's touch on that for just a little bit here. All righty. We don't want this kind of meeting either. We want a meeting where something gets done. So you're prepared, right? Breathe, relax. It's going to be okay. You have your plan. The agenda's right in front of you. Follow your plan. Either print it out, print out your agenda, bring your laptop with you, whatever you feel most comfortable with, and follow it. And remember, talk less and listen more, especially if you're the leader. Start and end on time and expect the unexpected. Stuff is going to happen. Like the other day for me, my Zoom messed up. I couldn't get it to work. You know what? It's going to happen. Stuff is going to mess up. You're going to make a mistake. It's okay. Use your resources. Use your parliamentarian too. It's okay to pause and say, you know what, hang on a sec. Ask for a teammate to help. Say, you know what, I don't know the answer. We need more time for this. Let's put this item in the parking lot and we'll bring it back to our next meeting. As Debbie said, put it in the parking lot. We're going to put it on the agenda for next time for unfinished business. That's okay. Or maybe refer it to a committee. You can make a motion to do that, use your parliamentary procedure. As an Altrusan, you're a member of the team, so no matter what meeting you're attending, participate. Raise your hand, raise a point of order, bring your expertise and your ideas. And remember, it is so important to follow up. There's nothing worse than being at a meeting and bringing up an idea and being all excited, and then you never hear another thing about it. It's crickets. So it's really important to follow up with the folks that bring things forward. And you know what? Our members work so very, very hard. Please be thankful. Thank them for their contributions. If somebody shares an idea, thank them. Thank your chairs for their reports. It feels good to be appreciated. And above all, you know what? Have fun. Plan for your social time. Plan for visits. Um, take that time to relax and enjoy each other. Again, back to the beginning, we're people first, and we're there to be together and to enjoy each other's company. We're there for a shared common goal and a common purpose, and don't ever forget that part of why we're there. And then P number 5 is pursue. So back in the day when I was big time into management, I had one leader say this to me, and I found out later reading a book, it's a quote from Peter Drucker, a big time executive leadership author. You cannot manage what you don't measure. And it was one of those quotes that stuck in my little brain that I hung on to forever. And there's really truth in that. And I touched a bit on action items. And again, I have actually done entire seminars on project management alone, let alone measurement metrics and progress reports. But I'm going to do this all in just a couple slides. So, hang on there, ladies, and we'll soldier through. But it's not really as hard. I mean, you can make it as hard as you want to make it, but you can also make it as simple as you can make it too. But it all relates to our purpose, right? I think there's nothing as frustrating as working on a project and then having no idea if you actually accomplished what you set out to do, at least in my opinion. I get really frustrated by that. Did I actually make a difference? And I think we're all in this together to make a difference. So how do we actually know if we made a difference? So this right here actually is Altrusa International's project plan template. You can download this right from International's website. And this is one that we tweaked a little bit for use by our club. The first sheet you see here is what you fill out and submit for project approval. And the second sheet is used for tracking. I actually took this and found it, tweaked it, and dusted it off. And I'm happy to share it with anybody after this presentation. I did this during my president's year because, like I said, I was a bit frustrated because we were submitting things for awards and taking hours and hours to find data and photos and things. And there was no reason for that. If we were to submit things ahead of time and track as we went, we didn't need to be doing that back work. So this is a way that you can, your committee chairs can easily track progress through your newsletters. You can use this as they do their updates to your club. A use of a project plan such as this helps your club ensure that the club resources, whether it's your time, your talent, your money, it's all spent wisely, and that your club members are kept informed.
Please, can I interrupt you again?
Yeah.
Two things. One, great job on this. And if you're willing to email it to me, I can email it out to everyone that is on this workshop. And I can also share it with all of our club presidents so that they have that as well, because I think that's a useful tool. The other thing that maybe you're going to mention, but I'll toss out here, is having something like this is a great reminder for each of our clubs. And this creates a process for it, that we don't have individuals in our clubs, in our Altrusa clubs at least, that come up with an idea for a project on their own and start doing it on behalf of Altrusa. Any projects that we do belong to our club as a whole. They're funded by our club. They're done by our members, which means that projects need to be approved by our club before people start on it. So sometimes people have a great idea, but it needs to go through the club process first. And this kind of a document is a great way to collect the basic info to share with the club to allow for group approval of it. And then it can proceed on to be a committee and have club funds and all that other kind of stuff.
Well, and that's a really good point, Debbie. Thank you for reminding me, because this actually came about sort of because of a rub, if you will, within our club. And I discovered, looking at our own club policy, that stated we were supposed to be using a form and we were supposed to be getting approval on all new club projects, and we weren't doing that. And so I said, you know what, we need to be doing what our policy says, or we need to change our policy. So our club decided, you know what, we need to be doing this. And so, just to highlight some of the things you were talking about, we put in who is putting it in. We have the name, the description, the time frame is important. Is this going to be a one-time thing? Are we going to keep doing it? Who's going to benefit? What is the funding? These things are going to take money. Where's this money going to come from? Who's going to need to volunteer? How many hours is this going to take? And then who needs to approve it? And then on the second page, we have all of the action items, the responsible people, the dates, and then we have a place for taking notes. So the second place, this is what the project lead or the committee chair, whoever's responsible, uses this as their tracking sheet. And then, just really quickly, I know we're running short on time, but I want to talk a bit about SMART goals. So again, in my career, there's some things that just stick in your noggin. This is one of the things that stuck in my noggin because it's so simple, and maybe some of you have used SMART goals before. But for me, I don't know about you, but I have struggled writing goals down, whether it's a professional, a team goal, or a personal goal. For me, this is such an easy tool. Is your goal specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely? And a good example, I kind of was thinking about this, and I want to be better about, being a green planet. I want to take care of my planet, but am I going to be able to save the planet all by myself? Well, no, that's not specific. It's not measurable. Certainly not attainable for me to save the planet all by myself. Probably relevant, but that goal in itself, it's not time-based, right? But if I want to be specific about it, I want to be better with recycling. Yeah, I want to be a better recyclable. Measurable, I can probably figure out a way to measure how much I recycle every week. Is it attainable? Sure, I've got the resources to recycle. Is it, relevant? Yeah, it aligns with my personal goals. It's relevant to my life. It means something to me. And is it timely? Yeah, I can measure how much recycling I do this year over how much I do next year. So that hopefully makes sense to you in terms of a SMART goal. It's a super easy tool to use. This is a SMART goal worksheet. If you're at all interested, I can send this to Debbie as well. My club hasn't used this yet. I haven't dared approach it. I happen to love this tool myself. And I am, again, happy to share it with anybody who would like to use it. Key takeaways for you guys. Again, the 5 P's and an extra P for fun. Purpose, clearly state what you want in your meetings. It's about the people. Know your roles. Listen more than you speak. Love your devil's advocate and your silent minority, and change those hats when you see your dynamic in your group changing. Be prepared. The scouts were right. You want to be prepared. Set up those expectations. Use your tools. Plan, delegate, and be social. You want to produce, start and end on time. Be mindful of your agenda. Be action-oriented. Stay on task. Participate. And then pursue. Make sure you use a worksheet, set goals, and track your progress. Report your outcomes. And then another P word, just because I wanted to think of one, but I chose party. Make sure you say thank you. Love your teams. Love your groups. Celebrate your accomplishments. I have a few resources for you guys if you're interested. These are some of the books that I like that have to do with meetings and people and teams. And of course, I have to throw one in for Robert's Rules for Dummies. Thank you very much, very, very much for your time. I know it's getting late, especially the East Coasters who may have left and fallen asleep, but I did want to finish on time. I know it says till 8:30. I had planned for an hour. So if anybody wants to stay till 8:30, I did leave some space to talk about scenarios. I thought of a few scenarios from my own personal experience, but I did want to put out some time for questions as well as any scenarios that you guys might want to talk through. And again, thank you guys so much for your time and attention.
Does anyone have any questions of Trece? Great presentation. Thank you. And you're all muted, so just unmute if you've got anything you want to share or ask.
I just want to know if this is recorded and it's going to be up so we can share it with some of the other people in the club.
Yes. Yes, I have recorded it and it's still running right now. But when the session's over, I will send that link to all of you, but we will
Great.
also get it put onto the district website. I will confess that a number of the more recent workshops have not been put onto the district website because I have forgotten how to upload them onto YouTube, which I have to do first. And then I have to give Courtney the YouTube link. So I'm going to work that out this weekend. We'll get it up on the district website soon. But yes, I'll send you all the recordings and to the presidents as well, so that can be shared with committee chairs or any of your members.
I've got the book.
That's a good one.
I love my dummies book.
I love that Art of Gathering one too by Priya Parker or whatever her I can't remember her last name. That's a really excellent book. Yeah.
Priya Parker, yeah.
Great, great, great information for presidents, but also for committee chairs or just regular members. So outstanding job, Trece. Thank you very much.
You.
Yes.
Where did you say that we could find the project plan template?
Is it on the international website under maybe
I think it's under
service?
I think it is under, might be under leadership tools. I'm not exactly sure. I can get that information to you. It's a little more in depth. It's a 4-pager as opposed to the 2 that our club kind of distilled it down a little bit. And I will send our clubs to Debbie as well.
Okay.
I'll send it to all of you. Evelyn, I
Right.
presume your email is in group tally. I can pull your email from there. And I'll send it to everyone on this call so that you all have access to that when Trece sends it to me. Great tool too.
I don't know that my email is in group tally. To be perfectly honest, I don't know how to use group tally.
That's okay. Why can you give me your email now, and that way I'll definitely have it?
Sure.
Okay.
GRAMEA48@sbcglobal.net.
Okay, GRAMEA48@sbcglobal.net.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
I will include you in the email so that you get the resources and the recording.
Okay, thank you.
You
Great.
want? Any questions? Anything anyone's wondering? Any scenarios you want to talk through?
I think it was a great presentation. I mean, after 40 years in the military, I could curl your hair with some of the meetings I've been to. And I'm amazed at how we survived before Zoom. I used to have to fly up to the Pentagon to go to a meeting and fly back the same day. And I really I think of all the things from COVID, Zoom was probably the best thing to come out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's made a huge difference being able to do things like this.
We
Mhm.
used to bring in once a year people from all over the world for a meeting with for the Air Force Chief of Staff, and we decided, well, during COVID we couldn't do that, so we just got everybody on Zoom. And granted, a lot of those folks were older and had never, to them a Zoom is what the airplane does when it takes off, and so we had to teach them and walk them through that. And once they got the hang of it, they thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so I'm glad that we still have in-person meetings, but Zoom is the way to go for when you can't be there in person.
It's provided us with a great opportunity to do things like that, build our personal skills
Yeah.
with different
And
workshops scattered throughout the year, and people from all over can join in.
do you know if there's any kind of etiquette or rules or what some of the resources that she talked about that pertain strictly to Zoom meetings?
Yes. Andy Francisco actually drafted up the rules for Zoom meetings that was shared with International, and it's on the International website. I guess it'd be under the
Okay.
leadership tab off the top of my head. And I can always share that with the whole group too, if anyone has an interest in that. But yes, we do have that on the Altrusa International website. I think we have it on the district website. If not, I'll make sure it gets onto the district website under our learning
Okay.
resources too.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions or comments for Trece or each other? No? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining in tonight. Trece, thank you for preparing a great presentation for everyone. We really appreciate it, and hope everyone has a good night and put some of this useful information to work in your clubs.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
Thanks so much.